I don't know if we are live. 1 second.
My screen says we're live.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So let's begin. I don't see myself, but hopefully see. Hello, everybody. Another week of Graduate Power. We begin the sprint today, and we are so happy. You know, we were missing you all January. We were missing all our students, and I'm glad you are all here. And today we have two people who will talk about interesting things about the advanced certificate of terrorist studies and also the International Crime Justice Masters. And we also have our associate dean, Dr. Maria D'Agostino, who will be soon will be, I will let her alone in the future. So she will be your host. Or maybe not, I don't know, but she's very excited to be here with you guys. Let me just begin with Dr. D'Agostino. I would like to introduce. She's the associate dean, and she's very happy to be with us. Dr. Agostino, could you tell us something about you?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Dimarote. Yes, welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here this evening with you. So I've been at John Jay for almost 15 years in the Department of Public Management. And this is my first Facebook Live, so I'm happy to be with you today. We're very fortunate to have with us a John Jay alum, Elizabeth Christian. She has an MA in International Criminal Justice and an advanced certificate in terrorism. She is an expert in misinformation, conspiracy theories, and extremism, and how they relate to people's discomfort with vaccines, especially the COVID-19 vaccine. After more than 20 years of studying pseudoscience, she helps people who are influenced by misinformation to understand how they are being psychologically coerced and manipulated without dismissing their beliefs. She also works with anyone who wants to be able to talk to friends and family members about vaccines and other controversial topics without arguing. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I
Well,
look forward
we
to
are
the
very interesting
conversation.
topic about the vaccines. I mean,
Super
this is amazing.
interested.
We are so curious now about that.
Yes.
By the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Dean Morote, Dean of the Graduate Studies. As usual, I never introduce myself, but here it is. They already text me, you didn't introduce yourself. Okay.
Great, thank you. So in addition to Elizabeth Christian, we're also fortunate to have Peter Romanuk. He is an associate professor of political science at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and the Graduate Center, the City University of New York. He is the director of the Center on Terrorism at John Jay and a senior fellow at the Global Center on Cooperative Security. He is the author of Multilateral Counterterrorism, The Global Politics of Cooperation and Contestation. His articles have appeared in African Security, Conflict, Security and Development, Crime and Law, and Social Change, as well as leading volumes in the United Nations Global Governance, Terrorism, and Counterterrorism. He is the editor of Global Governance, a review of multilateralism and international organizations, which is the journal of the Academic Council on the UN System. So welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting conversation.
There is two topics that are very interesting, the COVID and terrorism. By the way, for those that they don't know, I am from Peru, so we know terrorists pretty good. I actually grew up for 10 or 12 years of terrorists, the kids learning how to disable bombs in high school, and things like that. So very familiar with that very difficult topic. So Maria.
So if we could get started with
Yeah,
the first question, I'll pose it
yeah.
to both of you, which is if you could tell us a little bit about your current position and the journey that led you to where you are today. And if Peter, you wanted to start?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I joined John Jay College actually about the same time as Professor D'Agostino in 2006. I joined the political science department, having completed graduate school at Brown University. And at that time, John Jay had initiated a Center on Terrorism, which remains the only university-based research entity devoted to the topic of terrorism in the New York area. The focus of my research in graduate school had been sort of cross-national comparisons of counterterrorism policies. But having moved to New York after and coming to John Jay, I sort of developed a strand of research on international cooperation against terrorism, specifically through multilateral mechanisms like the United Nations. Over the years, as Maria mentioned, I've had the good fortune to collaborate with lots of colleagues at the United Nations, lots of colleagues at a research organization that does a lot of work with the UN, the Global Center on Cooperative Security. And I've had the good fortune to do field work in several continents and to interact a lot with practitioners and other researchers in other parts of the world. The founding director of the Center on Terrorism was Professor Chuck Strozier, who recently retired, and I took over the directorship. We've been trying to build our program to attract students to the Advanced Certificate in Terrorism Studies. And we've been fortunate to have terrific students like Elizabeth over the years that we've enjoyed interacting with in classes and in the seminar series that we run and is free and open to the public. And if you have questions about that in the course of watching this event, please just email terrorism@jjay.cuny.edu, and I'll be happy to pass on information about our seminar series. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Peter. Elizabeth, and if you could also tell us how you ended up getting the certificate in terrorism. So what led you to decide that?
So I guess I'll kind of frame my answer in terms of a way that might be helpful to a prospective student. I'm unlike a lot of graduate students at John Jay. I'm not fresh out of undergrad. That's a more common phenotype or age bracket. I have a bunch of life experience already, so I was already steeped in my own life experience and my own background education. So I was familiar with the subject of what, today we're calling extremism or irrational beliefs or a devotion to something that maybe some people would say does not represent reality. And I was interested in a way to make a career out of it. And for a while, I really struggled with that. And so at some point, I started asking everyone I knew that I respected, what would be a way to make a career out of that? And so I approached one person and she suggested I go to law school. And she said, if you have a law degree, you're going to be respected no matter what. And she was a lawyer. And then I talked to somebody else who said, this field you're interested in is so brand new, you really could just kind of strike out on your own and develop a following in social media and start writing. And he was somebody that had struck out on his own and developed a following in social media and started writing. And so this is the pattern. I kept asking people about my life and they kept telling me about their own life. And then eventually I talked to one person and she said, you might want to check out the graduate programs at John Jay. They have a reputation as an undergrad as being very conservative and traditional, but their graduate programs are much more diverse and you might find some like-minded researchers there and people might be open to your ideas. And she was the first person that I found that didn't kind of tell me to make a cookie cutter version of themselves. And so I'm saying that because you may find yourself in a position of asking for people's advice. And that's a really useful thing to look out for, is somebody who is going to tell you something that is not just about themselves. And so that individual that told me to go check out John Jay, she is someone I regularly turn to because I respect her judgment based on that. So I came to John Jay so I ended up studying terrorism, and I decided that was a way to go because terrorism is the manifestation of when people are at the extreme end of extremism, they're violent, and then it becomes a security issue. So there's resources and money and careers devoted to that. So it was kind of not a perfect match, but it ended up being really fortuitous for me. I found the terrorism certificate very helpful, because I mean, what all education really does is it tells you, it situates you with what all the people in the field have already said, and what the knowledge, the current state of knowledge is. So I found that really useful, even though personally, sometimes I was a little bit at odds with a lot of the research being done, because the focus is a little bit different. Like you can tell from Dr. Romaniak, he's interested in how do we get different countries to collaborate on the security issue. And so a lot of terrorism studies is about a security issue. My research is about the process that people go through to become extremists, to hold irrational beliefs. And I study those people, and I study the people that are coercing them. So I'm interested in what's the word that we use to describe is de-radicalizing. How do we get people out of believing those beliefs? And I'm also really interested in not just the small fraction of the population who hold those beliefs that go to commit crimes, but actually what we're seeing now in this country and actually all over the West is these beliefs are being accepted in the mainstream. And that's when insurgencies become very dangerous in populations, is when the mainstream actually supports them. So I'm interested in reaching out to the people who hold these extreme and also somewhat repulsive and offensive and threatening beliefs, and trying to interact with them in a way that does not escalate the situation. And there's a lot of families that have been fractured because of these things. And it's a giant public health threat right now, because there is a significant portion of the population that does not want to take the vaccine because they think it's deliberately going to harm them. And that's going to affect our herd immunity. So I launched, my project called Bridges Across the Divide is focused on communicating with anti-vaxxers.
So you touched two interesting points, Elizabeth. One is the terrorism studies, which is very interesting because since I grew up in a country which were attacked for 12 years and a lot of deaths, it was interesting that it really never occurred to me to, let me use a study, advanced terrorist studies. But it is interesting the path, how you make the decision, and the fact that Peter is explaining that somebody found it and there was an interest and there is some point of view. So it is interest pathing. And now the other thing is the anti-vaccine that is right now is so interesting, because I was watching the news. There is a big protesting in Australia about the anti-vaccine, and it's interesting because they do not have the COVID didn't affect it. Only have 600 deaths, so but they still want to vaccine the population, and so they feel that it is something dark and obscure, but it is related with the same brain, or how can I say, it's related with the same thing when somebody become a terrorist, because become terrorist because they have a passion for something or to believe something on that. So um, I have two questions, but people are asking about the vaccine. I want to go to the terrorists, but people are texting here. They want to know more about the vaccine. So let's begin with the vaccine, and then we will talk more with Peter about the terrorists.
Okay, so you want me to talk about?
Yeah, people are asking. They want to know more. They're texting right now about the anti-vaxxers. Do you agree with them? What is the story about that?
Yeah, let me come right out and say I support vaccinations. If I was up ahead on the list to get one, I would get one in a heartbeat. And so I'm not at all supporting anti-vaxxers. What I do. So I studied the mind of perpetrators, and I studied them because if somebody doesn't go and understand them, no one's going to stop them from making more victims. So I'm not interested in excusing their behavior or excusing accountability for anybody they might be hurting. But I am trying to understand where they're coming from in order to communicate with them, because communicating with people is the first way to gain some influence or gain some traction into why they might even want to listen to you in the first place. And right now, a lot of the conversation are people talking past each other. People generally who are pro-vaccine don't have a really good understanding of why somebody would be anti-vaccine. And people who are anti-vaccine are not at all interested in the arguments that people who are pro-vaccine are making. So so I'm on the side of more people getting vaccinated. I do not think forcing people through mandates to get vaccines is going to help us in the long run, because that is going to be seen as incredibly threatening and a violation of both their rights as a citizen of a democracy, and also of their personal, like personal physical safety, even though historically, and I think accurately, governments and the US government have treated diseases, infectious diseases and epidemics as a national security threat, as they are. We really, in a sense, are being brought to our knees by this, much in the same way we'd be brought by a very threatening, superpower or military force. So I certainly understand the government's position. I feel like a soft approach might be much more effective. So if there's a specific question, other than that, I don't, what I've found with this subject and also in this time during the pandemic, we're so, we live in such different worlds. It's kind of hard sometimes to even imagine what somebody else's life is like and what's going on in their head. So sometimes it's hard to imagine the questions that somebody else might actually have. So if somebody wants to articulate their question, perhaps Dean Morote could read that. But other than that, I'm afraid I would just be blabbing and not necessarily knowing if I'm addressing the right thing. But I think the target, though, would be to bring it back to the terrorism studies program. And so what I will say is that, and what Dean Morote, you pointed out, is it's kind of funny. You were able to notice a correlation between somebody who holds a really strong belief in something like being afraid of vaccines, and also in a terrorism at the same time, and as if there's a similarity there. And I absolutely agree there is, and I think many people in the terrorism security field think that way also. So I'll pause on that note and see what maybe everyone else has to contribute.
Let's see.
Thank-
Yeah, Maria, you want
thank
to say
you.
something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Elizabeth, and just bring it back to the advanced certificate a little bit, but because I'm curious to hear from Peter, just in general, to talk a little bit more about the certificate and what Elizabeth does, at least to me, seems so unique. So talking about the certificate and what others have gone on to do with the advanced certificate, also to give potential students an idea of potential career paths.
Terrific. Thank you, Maria. So the Advanced Certificate in Terrorism Studies at John Jay is a 12 credit or 4-class program. You can take it in class when we're all back on campus, or you can take it fully online. There's parallel versions of the certificate. The curriculum is designed such that if you are enrolled in one of John Jay's master's programs, it aligns well with your course of studies. And we indeed have a lot of students that are CJ, ICJ, forensic psych, public administration students that are in the program. Or if you're somebody that's finished an undergraduate degree or already has an existing master's program, and what you're looking for is a little bit more topical expertise in the field of terrorism studies, then this is a very good option for you. The curriculum, as I mentioned, so we have a couple of required classes and a couple of electives. I think what makes the program really special is that we, as I mentioned earlier, run a seminar series at the Center on Terrorism. Our location in New York gives us an incredible ability to draw upon leading researchers and practitioners in the field. We've had some of the most prominent sort of researchers that have published books and articles. Some of the leading names in the field of terrorism studies have spoken in our series and come to our campus. The virtue of being on campus, of course, is that it gives our students an opportunity to be in the room with the people that are setting the tone of the debate, that are advancing research and gathering sort of new primary evidence. and we link a series of courses to the seminar series. This enables us to expose our students to a broader range of research and practitioners, as I said, that then you can learn more from a range of experts than you can from myself and my colleagues on the faculty alone. So those are the things about our program that I think set us apart. Our students have gone on to a range of different careers. Some go into higher degrees. Others, use this as an opportunity to refine their interests and then go to law school on that basis. But others follow a more sort of traditional John Jay graduate career path, which is to go and work in public service, in law enforcement, intelligence, or in the first responder community, whether that's at the state, local, or indeed at the federal level. We've had several students go on to intelligence and law enforcement agencies in Washington. It's a diverse range of opportunities that are out there for people that have graduate level qualifications, but with topical expertise in the field of terrorism studies.
Peter, I see you are talking about experiential learning, the fact that the students are able to talk with speakers and people who have knowledge about the terrorist studies. I think that's a very good thing, because you actually talk with people who have involved in the research. I wanted to ask Elizabeth if when she was a student in this advanced certificate, do you remember what was your favorite, or what is the you remember most, the I guess the takeaway of the advanced certificate?
So I have so many. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I really did love the seminar series. I still was attending them after you have to do it for 2 semesters. And the whole time I was at John Jay, I attended many. I try to make them even now because they're online. One of them in particular, it was Dr. I'm going to butcher his name, the Iranian scholar, Dr. Abrahamian. We read his book, and his book blew me away. I couldn't. The first 100 pages were a little bit hard, because you're reading about Iran's political history, which I didn't have any background in. But after that, I couldn't put it down. And when Dr. Maniak introduced him, he thanked him for a paradigm shifting. And actually, you know what? He came and he spoke, and like most people that write a book and they come and they talk, I expect him to come and talk about his book, which I was excited about. But then he ended up talking about a completely different subject, which was completely fascinating in its own right. And so when Dr. Maniak introduced him or thanked him afterwards as a facilitator, I don't know if you probably remember this, you said that it was paradigm shifting. You thanked him for the paradigm shifting talk. And I was so happy that you'd said that, because I was kind of blown away by what everything he had said. And so it's those paradigm shifting information that you get that I really loved at the program. And also one of the courses that I took, 744, Politics and Terrorism, which I believe is a requirement for the terrorism studies class. It was taught by Dr. Sahid Shapoo. I don't know that he's still at John Jay. I think he's at Harvard working on his doctorate right now. But he was the Inspector General of India's FBI on counterterrorism. So he was able, as a lifelong scholar and growing up in the Middle East, to teach us about the situation in the Middle East and the development of it. And he was absolutely brilliant in, if you told him about the finger, he would tell you about the nail. So, I mean, there was just but a lot of the ways that I thought and the information I had changed due to paradigm shifting information. And that I feel like is a real strength of the program. If you show up and do all the reading, I have nothing. And I will also give a quick shout out, because I know we're going to wrap this up.
Students are, okay, somebody's asking about how you become entrepreneur after the program.
So the difference between an entrepreneur and academia is, academia, there's a lot of gatekeepers, and there are other people, and they have a lot of set rules. But as an entrepreneur, you really just kind of raise your hand and decide to be one. And then the downside is that you can crash and burn and no one's going to stop you either. So, you know, to find something that you feel like you have enough expertise or enough passion or you have enough resources to launch yourself, you know, that's its own thing. It's kind of like the opposite of academia. And so like John Jay, you know, the purpose of going to, I feel like an institution, an academic institution, is not just the knowledge that you get when you're in it, but that you become part of a community as an alumni. And their name is on you. And so they're invested in wanting you to succeed. And at a school like John Jay, you find there's an enormous amount of people who are just really nurturing as far as what they care about and your career and your knowledge and passing their knowledge onto you. So you're given a lot of support, where as an entrepreneur, right? So in academia, people are really good at training people to become academics, whereas academics are not really the best people to learn how to be an entrepreneur from. Those are typically other entrepreneurs. So I have a history of striking out on my own already before. I wouldn't recommend, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't know that getting a master's degree is maybe like the best thing for you, unless I don't mean to diss on anybody's program, but unless you want to be credentialed in that specific field. So that ended up working well for me. But in order to be an entrepreneur, you basically just find a niche and go fill it and start making a lot of noise as much as you can. And by the way, my goal for the year is to get over 100 followers on Twitter. So feel free to follow me. Bridges X Divide.
Yes, Bea, you have to start following right now. You need to do the promotion.
Oh yeah, okay. So my website is my name. It's Elizabeth K and my last name KRIESTEN.com. You can find me at LinkedIn. You can find me at Bridges Across the Divide on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which I still don't even know how to use, and YouTube. But I would suggest, yeah, the website has all the links, and Twitter is where I'm the most active, even though I have, yeah, I'm not quite a rock star on the platform as of yet.
Very good. Maria?
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess one last question for Peter on a similar note. If you were to give one piece of advice to students who are thinking of beginning this certificate, what would it be?
Sure. You know, for anybody that's thinking about undertaking graduate studies, you should go in with a plan. You should set yourself some objectives and have an idea as to why the programs that you're applying to can help you achieve your objectives. We have a demonstrated record at John Jay of helping students become topical experts in the field of terrorism studies. As Elizabeth very kindly said, you know, you'll be exposed to leading researchers and practitioners. You'll work very closely with your professors. You'll be in a cohort of students with, you know, fellow travelers, people with similar goals and objectives, who have proven to be, you know, good friends and quite supportive of each other over the years. You know, it behooves anybody thinking about undertaking a graduate program to do all the research that they can and compare our program to others. But you know, having been at John Jay now for coming up to 15 years, you know, I'm very confident in the ability of our program to help students acquire knowledge, acquire skills, and achieve their professional objectives.
That's very nice. So so the student needs to be enrolled in a master program, or they already can have the masters from another place, correct?
Or you can come in straight after your undergraduate degree.
Oh, you can come from oh, okay, good. So that's also good to know. And Elizabeth, so will be the same question, but for our future students. No, future, no, sorry. For our current students, people who are already in our program, that are about to leave, and they have to start looking for a job in different areas, or maybe decided to do something like you. What would be your advice?
All right, advice number one, and this is based on my peers at John Jay, check your email. You got to get a hold of that email. I don't understand why who you think is going to answer that for you, or how are you going to keep track of things without it? Number two, check your people. So the most valuable thing, right? Your time at John Jay ends, but the relationships you make there do not. So the people that you've been in class with, your peers, those are, I mean, when you're an adult, it's called networking, but in real life, it's called making friends. And connect with people in your classes. Those are people who have the same interests of you as you, and connect with your professors, follow them or connect with them on LinkedIn, but connect with them in real life. I have one of the great things about ICJ, I was in the International Criminal Justice Program, but one of the great things about the terrorism certificate is, as Dr. Matt Romaniak mentioned, it's multidisciplinary. So I have a group of friends that I made, and they were in the criminal justice program, the cyber forensics program, the forensic psychology program. And we still meet on Zoom regularly. We still have, we're in a WhatsApp chat group. And when there's something on the news that comes up, we're chatting about it. And we cover a really diverse range of subjects, but we're not like, we're all interested in different angles of the same thing. So we have these really interesting discussions. So, and we've helped each other solve problems, write cover letters, get jobs. The people that you're on this journey with are your biggest resource, and hang on to them. Make an effort to get to know them and to stay in touch with them. Even when you don't want to, it's worth it.
You know what? It's excellent, because networking is the number one thing that you can grow. And I like you that I will quote you now. You don't network, you make friends. And we tell in graduate studies is you become our family. And that's what we want. We want to continue being part of the family of graduate studies. Please come to our networking events or social hours. And I'm so happy, Elizabeth Christian, that she came today. You know, she's volunteering. She said, let me just talk with the students, because you are part of the family. And that's it. So we are, it's the way to grow and continue working together. And that's great advice. Professor Romaniuk, thank you, and Christine. Maria, you want to say something else?
Thank you to everyone. I know I learned a lot this evening, and I'm sure that our viewers learned a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be reaching out with questions about the program.
I'm excited. I want to go and be a little girl, maybe, and sign up to this. I will sneak to this conference. I love it. You know, all the things that Peter was saying. So, oh, I want that. And
Great.
I will be checking. Please check Christian, Elizabeth Christian Twitter and LinkedIn, so we can follow her and learn more about her new things. Okay, so bye everybody. Sorry.
Thank you.
Posted on the John Jay Facebook page, and people have questions. I mean, I'll go visit them if anyone wants to ask.
Oh, yes, true. Well, that's very nice. Okay, so you see, you have a new friend. You can go and ask questions to Kristen. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Have a
And
good evening.
I hope you have a beautiful night, and I will see you in the next week.